All right, let's be honest, you can't swing a dead cat on the internet without hitting some article about the latest political scandal. But what about the ones that fly under the radar? The ones that maybe didn't involve a rogue email server or a suspiciously well-endowed intern? Believe it or not, those exist. And they're often just as juicy, if not juicier, than the headline-grabbing stuff. We're talking about the kind of scandals that make you go, wait, that actually happened, and nobody really talked about it? The kind that involve backroom deals, shady campaign contributions, and maybe even a few questionable connections to, let's just say, organized groups with very specific interests. So buckle up, because we're about to take a deep dive into the murky depths of political history and expose some of the most shocking scandals you've probably never even heard of. You might want to grab a stiff drink for this one, folks. It's going to be a wild ride. Picture this, 1980s Italy, a time of big hair, bigger shoulder pads, and an alarmingly high tolerance for political corruption. We're talking about the era of the Tangentopoli scandals, where seemingly everyone in power was on the take. Now, amidst this hotbed of bribery and backstabbing, there was a particularly strange incident involving a prominent politician, let's call him Silvio, and a very valuable piece of art that mysteriously went missing. Rumours swirled that this artwork, either a Van Gogh or a Picasso, depending on who you asked and how many fingers of espresso they'd had, was part of a shady deal gone wrong. Some whispered it was used to bribe a high-ranking official, others claimed it was collateral in a rather unorthodox loan agreement. The point is, nobody really knows what happened to that painting. It vanished into thin air, much like the integrity of several politicians involved. And the whole thing was conveniently swept under the rug because, well, there were just so many other scandals happening at the time. It's like trying to pick your favourite flavour of dumpster fire. You're spoiled for choice and none of them are particularly appetising. But this art heist, or whatever it was, remains a fascinating footnote in Italian political history. A reminder that sometimes the truth is stranger and far more lucrative than fiction. Let's hop across the pond now to the good old US of A, where democracy is a cherished tradition, except, of course, when it isn't. We're talking about the 2000 presidential election, a contest so close, so contentious, and so riddled with irregularities that it makes your average Florida recount look like a model of efficiency. The main players, George W. Bush, Al Gore, and a whole lot of hanging chads in the Sunshine State. Long story short, the election came down to a few hundred votes in Florida, leading to a recount process so messy and confusing that it would make a Byzantine emperor blush. There were allegations of voter suppression, ballot tampering, and enough legal challenges to keep an army of lawyers gainfully employed for years to come. In the end, the Supreme Court stepped in, stopped the recount, and handed the victory to Bush. Now, whether you agree with the outcome or not, there's no denying that the 2000 election was a bit of a shit show, to put it mildly. It exposed deep flaws in the American electoral system and left a lingering sense of unease about the legitimacy of the result. But hey, at least we got some decent late-night comedy material out of it, right? Because if we can't laugh at the slow-motion train wreck of our own democracy, then what can we laugh at? Chapter 3. The case of the exploding pipeline and the politicians who turned a blind eye. For this next scandal, we're heading north of the border to Canada, a country known for its politeness, its moose, and its apparently lax pipeline safety regulations. In 2010, a natural gas pipeline owned by a company called Enbridge ruptured in Michigan, spilling millions of gallons of crude oil into the Kalamazoo River. It was one of the largest inland oil spills in US history, causing widespread environmental damage and costing billions of dollars to clean up. Now, you might be thinking, okay, that's terrible, but where's the scandal? Well, it turns out that Enbridge had a history of safety violations and that Canadian regulators had been warned about the risks posed by this particular pipeline. Yet they failed to take adequate action to prevent the disaster. Why? Well, that's where things get murky. Some allege that the government was too cozy with the oil industry and turned a blind eye to safety concerns in the name of economic growth. Others claim that it was simply a case of incompetence and bureaucratic bungling. Whatever the reason, the Kalamazoo River oil spill is a stark reminder that environmental disasters are often the result of human error and a failure of oversight, and that sometimes the true cost of progress is measured in gallons of spilled oil and the devastation of natural ecosystems. Chapter 4. The Missing Millions and the Minister Who Went on a Spending Spree. Let's journey now to the sunny shores of the Bahamas, where the rum is strong, the beaches are beautiful, and the political scandals are, well, surprisingly brazen. In the early 2000s, the Bahamas was rocked by a corruption scandal that would make even the most jaded cynic raise an eyebrow. It involved a high-ranking government minister, let's call him Mr. B, and a whole lot of missing money. See, Mr. B was in charge of overseeing a government-funded housing project, but instead of, actually building houses for the people, he allegedly decided to treat himself to a little shopping spree. And by shopping spree, we mean he allegedly embezzled millions of dollars of public funds. We're talking luxury cars, lavish vacations, designer clothes, the works. It was like something out of a bad rap video, except instead of champagne and diamonds, it was taxpayer money and questionable real estate investments. The scandal sent shockwaves through the Bahamas, leading to calls for Mr. B's resignation and a renewed focus on government accountability. But despite the outrage, Mr. B maintained his innocence and, to this day, has never been charged with any crime, which, in the grand scheme of things, is perhaps the most scandalous part of it all. Chapter 5. The Dictator's Secret Swiss Bank Account and the Celebrities Who Helped Him Spend It. Our final stop on this whirlwind tour of political malfeasance takes us to the glamorous world of international finance, where the rich and powerful stash their cash and the lines between legality and, shall we say, creative accounting get a little blurry. This scandal involves a notorious dictator, let's call him General X, who ruled his country with an iron fist and a seemingly bottomless Swiss bank account. For years, General X plundered his nation's wealth, siphoning off millions of dollars into offshore accounts, while his people struggled in poverty. But here's where things get really interesting. It turns out that General X had a penchant for the finer things in life, and he wasn't afraid to spend his ill-gotten gains to indulge his extravagant tastes. We're talking private jets, sprawling mansions, and enough champagne and caviar to make even the most decadent Roman emperor blush. And who did he allegedly rely on to help him launder his money and maintain his lavish lifestyle? None other than a bevy of high-profile celebrities, bankers, and socialites. That's right, folks. While General X was busy oppressing his people, he was allegedly rubbing shoulders with the glitterati, using his stolen wealth to buy influence and respectability. It's a tale as old as time, or at least as old as numbered Swiss bank accounts, power, corruption, and the seductive allure of obscene wealth. Outro: stay informed, stay vigilant. So there you have it, just a small sampling of the many political scandals that history has conveniently forgotten, or at least tried to. These stories may be shocking, but they serve as a stark reminder that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Don't let the mainstream media distract you with their shiny objects and manufactured outrage. Dig deeper, ask questions, and never be afraid to hold those in power accountable, no matter how big or small their transgressions. If you enjoyed this little trip down memory lane, be sure to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel for more, and share it with your friends. And if you know of any other obscure political scandals that deserve to be exposed, leave a comment below. Let's keep the conversation going and shine a light on the dark corners of political history.